Alright, so this video is the first in a series on the Kedro framework. Before we get into exactly what Kedro is, I want to go through a little bit about my personal setup. I want to talk about the tools I use, the things you're going to see in this series, and just like what's on screen and how to like get a feel for yourself, what you're looking at. Uh, First off, I recently switched over to using Ubuntu. Works pretty well for me. I'm just using GNOME with a dark theme. The terminal, gonna see a lot of the terminal. I'm just using the built-in GNOME terminal. It just works. It does all the things I need to do. It supports transparency, renders all my fonts, all those emoji and symbol fonts just fine for me. I do in the settings have a one dark theme installed. Um, my dot files, so you can find all my dot files on GitHub. I'll have a link in a bunch of places you can find it. Feel free to read through my dot files, take anything you want. I do encourage you to just take the pieces you need, make dot files your own. Dot files are a very personal thing. They're an extension of our fingertips. It's very much designed for the way you think and type. Um, the default shell you'll see me use a lot is ZSH. Um, when I open a new terminal split here, this is ZSH. We can go ahead and close that split, zoom in up top. Uh, it's an I like it because it's a little bit better as an interactive shell. It does a little bit better with things like tab completion and autocomplete. The prompt you'll see is Starship. Again, just works out of the box. It gives me all the nice things I need. Here we'll do full screen over into ZSH. Out of the box, it gives me my Git branch, Git status. It tells me what Python version I'm running and what conda environment I have active. Um, I don't need to configure that. Works fast, works well, looks good. Tmux. Tmux is a terminal multiplexer. It's what takes this terminal and allows me to hotkey switch between different environments. As a team lead, I'm in and out of a ton of projects every day. Tmux allows me to switch between these files and these projects with super speed. Up until about October of 2020, I was using a mix of VS Code and Tmux and Vim. And at that point, I got a new development machine and I really pushed myself just to work out of the terminal. I felt like VS Code was only getting slower and slower. Every time I needed to open up another project, it just was taking longer and longer. I was actually just not getting as much from it as I originally was, especially now that LSP is part of Vim. So some of those nice things you get from the language server in VS Code, you can now get them in Vim. You can have like the super custom ability to customize your NeoVim setup. I really like the raw speed and customization you can get out of NeoVim. I don't necessarily have it terribly tricked out with too many plugins. Again, you'll find all that in my dot files. I'm using a theme called OneBuddy. It's a clone of the One Dark theme. You'll see. I like the One Dark theme. It looks good. And it's common enough that I can find it in the terminal and in NeoVim. So things kind of match without me having to fuss with it too much. Um, I'm using PyLSP rather than Microsoft's Pyrite uh, server. Works pretty well. I like that I can make it use MyPy rather than Microsoft's type checking library. Only because we use MyPy in CI/CD a lot. We use it in pre-commit. So it's really nice when that type checker matches up. Uh, there's a nice Kedra LSP that you'll see used throughout. Has a little bit of go-to definition, things like that. Lim from the core Kedra team has been working on that. It's looking pretty nice. I'm excited to see where it goes. Um, You'll see a lot of IPython. I really like using IPython. I like how it lets me edit code in my editor, import it, run it real quick. It gives me the right level of tooling. I really don't need a lot of markdown mixed in my code. I'd rather just use a doc string, or if it's something a little bit bigger, just put it in a wiki or in the project's README. If I need to see plots, I just save them as a PNG. Or, if I got to see multiple plots, put them in an HTML file, open them up in my browser. It works pretty well, and you get the nice things that you get out of a browser. I can lay them out however I want them. It doesn't really take that much. Um, I do a little bit of customization on my IPython. Um, Again, you'll find that in the .files repo. I have a custom prompt, and I use rich formatting and rich tracebacks if rich is installed. Um, Here's some links to some things. You'll see that in the article. I did want to share real quick. So I do have rich somewhere. Let's see here. See what sessions we have running. We'll do is this the one? Okay, so here's my IPython prompt. You'll notice when we're in IPython by it saying IPython here. Let me go between these. I'm going to try to run print me. Okay. And this is the standard IPython traceback. If I go over to this other session, we can clear this out. Print me. This is what rich looks like. Gives me just a little bit better looking tracebacks. As you just saw on the screen, if I import or if I print out a data frame, this one in particular doesn't necessarily look much different, but some data frames do look significantly better with rich. I go over here and I do we'll import pandas, and we will also print this data frame. We don't get the nice colors that we do without rich. Right. So the another thing we were going to show real quick in this intro session is that Kedro LSP. So I guess before we get to the Kedro LSP, let's look at PyLSP. One of the things I'm getting out of it is type checking. I have a function here called one. It returns one as an integer. So if I change my type hinting return to a bool, I get right in my editor, incompatible type, return type, got int expected bool. So it's telling me that I'm returning an integer when my expected return type that I told the function it would return is a Boolean. So we can switch this over to an int, and our uh, error goes away. Here's another thing that I do by default. If we do this, we delete some lines here. You'll see error 302 expected 2 lines got 0, so I've got flake 8 there. If I save this file, black will run by default and take care of any formatting errors I might have. I think, yeah, if I pick this out, over indented, and save it, it'll fix my indenting for me. I have some Kedro nodes here. Uh, One thing I wanted to do down here, I've got some of these in a catalog. I should be able to do a GD to go to definition. This takes me right over to Kedro history conf base catalog.yaml in my range 2. And I'll hit last file and Vim, take me back to where I was. Yeah, so I just hit GD. um, here, GD, and it takes me over to uh, my Kedro catalog definition just by calling go to definition on that uh, data on that catalog entry in the node. Pretty cool. Maybe talk about a little bit of what you see down at the bottom here. You can always find like the file that I'm in when I'm in Vim in this line down at the bottom. And then down below that, I have working on Kedro history. So this is the Tmux session that I'm in. Over here is the Tmux window. It looks like I have two windows. So I've got um, some shells over here, and then I've got my editor over here. So this is called ZSH. This is called NVim. If I switch back to my blog, we'll see this often. This is where I take all my notes. You'll see down here working on waylonwalker.com. Uh, and that will be in this very bottom Tmux status bar pretty much all the time. Um, yeah, that is like a little bit about the things you're going to see. Um, we're probably go over some of these things pretty quick, so it might be a little bit confusing if you haven't seen these things, what they are. You can always refer back to this video to see, to remind yourself, or the article that I link up. But anyways, that's how I Kedro. I use the terminal, Tmux, ZSH, NeoVim, and IPython are kind of the highlights there.